The night my world burned down, I thought I'd finally met my end. The wind howled like a wounded beast across the plains of Lone Mesa, carrying with it the stench of smoke and death. My ranch, Maddox Ranch, had stood proud for 3 generations. I'd poured every drop of sweat and every heartbeat into that land, carving a life out of rock, dust, and long days under a merciless sun, but all it took was one spark, one careless ember from a lightning strike in the hills, to turn it into an inferno. The flames moved faster than any stallion, devouring fences, barns, and dreams alike. I fought them with everything I had, a shovel in one hand and a wet blanket in the other, my lungs screaming from the smoke. The fire was a wall of orange and red fury, and I was just a man too stubborn to let go. But no man can fight nature alone. When the roof of the barn cracked and fell, I was sure it was over, and until I heard her voice. "Get down." Before I could turn, something hit me hard, a blur of motion that knocked me to the ground just as a beam came crashing, down where I'd been standing. Through the smoke I saw her, a woman in a soot-covered duster, a red scarf tied around her face, eyes sharp as a hawk's. She moved with the confidence of someone who'd danced with danger before. Without a word, she grabbed the bucket beside me, doused a burning pile of hay, and then shoved a wet cloth into my hands. "Cover your mouth! Don't breathe it in," she shouted over the roar of the fire. I didn't know her name, but in that moment, she was the only thing standing between me and death. Together we battled the fire like 2 souls defying hell itself. The air was thick with sparks. My arms trembled, my skin blistered, but she didn't stop, not even when her hair caught a stray ember. I smothered it with my hat and she gave me a quick nod, eyes meeting mine for just a heartbeat, wild, determined, alive. When we finally made it to the last barn, the one that housed my best horse, Duke, I thought it was too late. The flames had already wrapped around the stable like a serpent. But she didn't hesitate. She ran inside before I could stop her. "You'll die in there," I yelled, my voice cracking. "Then I'll die saving something worth saving," she shouted back. Seconds felt like hours. The fire roared louder, and I could only pray she'd make it out. Then, through the choking smoke, I saw movement, and Duke, thrashing and kicking, and behind him, her small frame guiding him out by the reins. When they burst through the flames, I swear the world stopped. She stumbled out coughing, hair singed, eyes watering. But she was smiling, and that kind of reckless, stubborn smile only heroes wear. I caught her before she fell, her body trembling against mine. "You're insane," I whispered. "Maybe," she rasped, her voice hoarse. "But your horse is safe." By dawn, the fire was finally out. The ranch was a black skeleton of what it once was, fences gone, barns in ashes, the smell of burnt cedar thick in the air. I stood there, broken, staring at everything I'd lost, and everything I somehow still had. The woman sat by the well, her hands blistered, clothes torn, but her spirit unbroken. "You should see a doctor," I said, offering her water. "I've had worse," she replied, her eyes meeting mine with quiet strength. "Name's Claire." "Colt Maddox," I said, shaking her hand, the hand that had just saved my life. "Well, Colt," she said with a weary smile, "looks like you owe me a new coat. And maybe a cup of coffee?" I laughed for the first time that night, a sound I hadn't heard from myself in months. That's when I realized something. She didn't just save my ranch. She'd pulled me out of a fire I'd been living in long before the flames ever started. In the days that followed, Claire stayed on the ranch, helping me rebuild. She knew how to swing a hammer, mend fences, and calm spooked horses better than most men I'd ever hired. But there was something about her, a shadow behind her eyes, a story she wasn't telling. She'd ride out at sunset sometimes, disappearing into the hills, only to return hours later smelling faintly of gunpowder and trouble. And though part of me wanted to ask, another part knew better. People who carry fire in their hearts usually have scars to match. As the weeks went by, I started to feel something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Not the kind that comes easy, but the kind you build with your bare hands after everything's been burned to the ground. We worked side by side, and every stolen glance, every quiet word shared under the stars, built something stronger than any ranch fence. Something I didn't have a name for yet. One night, as we sat by the campfire, I handed her a small pouch filled with gold dust I'd kept hidden since my father's time. "It's not much," I said, "but it's yours, for saving my life." She stared at it for a long moment, then pushed it back into my hand. "I don't want your gold, Colt. What I want She paused, eyes meeting mine, burning with something fierce and lonely. It's for you to trust me. And that's when I knew. What I owed her wasn't something that glittered or weighed heavy in a pouch. It was something far rarer, far more dangerous. It was my heart. But what I didn't know then was that Claire's past was catching up to her, and the fire that nearly destroyed my ranch was nothing compared to the storm that was about to descend on both of us. The weeks after the fire blurred into one long, dusty stretch of work and silence. Every sunrise brought the same rhythm. Rebuilding fences, hauling lumber, and trying to breathe life back into the ashes. But even as the land healed, something inside me kept stirring. It wasn't just gratitude that tied me to Claire. It was something deeper, heavier, and harder to understand. She'd saved my ranch, my horse, my life. But more than that, she'd awakened something I'd buried long ago, a reason to care again. And yet, behind her calm eyes and steady hands, I could feel a secret pressing against her heart, waiting for the right moment to break free. It came one night when the sky hung low and restless, thunder grumbling over the far ridges. Claire stood by the corral, the moonlight tracing her profile, strong but tired. I walked up beside her, a bottle of whiskey in one hand, 2 tin cups in the other. "You've been quiet lately," I said, pouring her a drink. "That's not like you." She took the cup but didn't drink. "You ever try to outrun your past, Colt?" she asked softly. I frowned. "Once or twice. Never managed to get far." She smiled faintly. "Neither did I." She didn't say much at first, just enough for me to see the weight in her shoulders. She told me about a man named Hollister, a mine boss down south who used to run his crew with a whip and a gun. Claire had worked there as a medic, patching up men broken by greed and cruelty. One night she caught Hollister stealing from the payroll. When she confronted him, he tried to silence her the only way a coward knows how, with violence, but she fought back. The bullet missed her heart by an inch, and the one she fired didn't miss at all. She'd been running ever since, carrying the memory and the guilt with her. "They called it murder," she said, staring into the dark. "I call it survival." For a long time, neither of us spoke. The rain began to fall, light and slow, hissing on the cooling earth. I looked at her, this woman who had walked through fire, both real and not, and I felt something twist inside me. "You saved me, Claire," I said. "You don't owe me an explanation." She shook her head. "That's where you're wrong. Colt, Hollister had friends, men with long memories and short tempers. They'll come for me, and when they do, they won't care whose land this is." Her words hung in the air, like the smell of smoke that never truly leaves a burned field. I should have told her to leave, to run before trouble found her again, but I couldn't. The thought of her riding away into that empty desert tore at something I didn't even know I still had. "If they come," I said, voice low, "they'll find me waiting." The next few days were tense. Claire tried to act normal, fixing the roof, tending to Duke, keeping busy, but her eyes always drifted toward the horizon. And then one evening the horizon answered. 3 riders appeared at dusk, black shapes against the red sky, moving slow but sure like wolves scenting prey. I recognized the look in their eyes even before they dismounted. Guns for hire, trouble in human form. The leader was a tall man with a scar that split his cheek like a canyon. He smiled when he saw Claire. "Well, ain't this a surprise," he drawled. "Didn't think we'd find you playing house." "Sweetheart." Claire stepped forward, jaw tight. "You don't have to do this, Rourke." "Oh, I think I do," he said. "Boss wants his money back, and your head to go with it." My hand went to the revolver on my hip. "You boys are on private land," I said, stepping between them. "Best turn your horses around and ride back the way you came." Rourke's smile widened. "And who might you be, cowboy? Her new savior?" "Something like that." The next moments came fast. The wind shifted, a dry gust that carried the smell of gun oil and storm. Rourke reached for his pistol, and I drew mine. The crack of thunder swallowed the first shot. Then chaos. The fight was over in less than a minute, though it felt like a lifetime. When the smoke cleared, 2 men lay still, and Rourke was crawling backward, clutching a wound in his side. Claire stood over him, gun steady, eyes cold. "This ends now," she said. "Tell your boss I'm done running." He spat blood, glared at her, then staggered to his horse and rode off into the night. When it was over, the silence was deafening. Claire's hand trembled as she lowered the gun. I went to her, gently taking it from her grip. "It's over," I whispered. "You're safe now." But she just shook her head, tears mixing with rain. No, Colt, you don't understand. I brought this here. I put your life, your home, in danger. I reached out, cupping her face in my hands. You didn't bring the fire, Claire. You fought it. You saved me when you didn't have to. You stayed when you could have left. That's more than anyone's ever done for me. She looked at me then, really looked, like a woman seeing light after years in the dark. And before I could say another word, she leaned forward and kissed me. It wasn't soft or careful, and it was desperate, raw, full of every unspoken thing we'd both carried. When she pulled back, she whispered, I don't know where this road leads. Colt, but if you'll have me. I smiled through the ache in my chest. I already do. The storm passed, leaving the land washed clean. By morning, the sun rose over the charred hills, spilling gold light across the new fences, the rebuilt barn, and the two of us standing side by side, not as strangers bound by a fire, but as something far stronger. I realized then that what I owed her wasn't a debt that could be paid with gold or gratitude. It was a promise, to stand beside her no matter how many fires the world tried to throw our way. And as the wind carried the scent of wet earth and cedar through the valley, I finally understood. Some people walk into your life to save what's burning, but the rare ones, they stay to rebuild what's worth keeping. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit like, drop a comment about your favorite moment, and subscribe to the channel, because more stories like She Saved My Burning Ranch, but what I owed her was more than gold, are coming. Tales of courage, love, and second chances out on the wild frontier. Subscribe now and saddle up for the next ride.